Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to Always Receiving Nur, weekly Quran study. We are continuing to journey in Surah Luqman, Surah 31, and we have explored various themes about choosing Tawheed and its repercussions, importance of gratitude, and how it is linked to belief and wisdom and life after death. So key core concepts for our lives and our existence have been coming up, and we've been journeying with Sister Yamina, and we'll continue to journey with her tonight. As you all know, we're welcome to ask questions or make thoughtful comments either during the discourse or afterwards in the more formal Q&A session. So Sister Yamina, please. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح لنا أبواب حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. Assalamu alaikum again. So as Isra just reminded us, it's our 8th week reflecting on Surat Luqman, and last week we stopped at ayah 19. So today we're supposed to start at 20, but before that, last week after we stopped our meeting together, I had some questions, and well, I'm going to share some of the questions. There are more, but those questions kept coming back, and I don't know if really I have all the answers, but maybe you can share also your feelings and reflections about this, and I wanted to share those before we can move, because I felt the need to answer them and resolve them before I can move on. And this is not the end for me, it's the beginning, because it's something very important, especially relationship with between children and parents, because it's really let's say it's a marker for our relationship with other people. So one of the questions was, first, both parents are mentioned in the ayah. I think it was ayah 14. But then only the mother is mentioned specifically, and this is not only in this surah, in other surahs it's the same. So when it says, استعيذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير. So it says, we have enjoined upon human being goodness towards his parents. Here the parents is both parents. والديه is the jewel. But then it says حملته أمه, his mother bore him. And so I wondered why is the mother specified? And the only thing that came to my mind is, I thought maybe because as we grow up as children, it's we can see, children can see their parents taking care of them, both parents in different ways, but they're least likely to appreciate how the mother brought them into this world, because they can't remember that usually. And so it's the thing that we're most likely to not to appreciate, which is the pregnancy, how we came into this world, and the giving of birth, and all those very early years when the mother takes care of the baby 24/7. When you think of it, and were it not for the care and the compassion and the love that is put in the mother's heart, it's really, really difficult. I mean, feeding and cleaning and non-stop, especially the first few months. And so that's all I could think of. So if you have anything else in mind, please share with us, like why only the mother is specified when both parents are mentioned in the beginning, and also when it says shkurli wali walidayka, again, like be grateful to me and towards both of your parents. Yes?
Sister Yamina, I have something, but I'm not sure if this is the thing, but one thing that comes to my mind is the role of bearing a child is the only role that is very gender specific, meaning only women can do that. Anything other than that, once the baby is in the world, like if the mother passes away or doesn't have access to the child, it can survive somehow. The father can breastfeed, but after that stage of nobody else can, no man can breastfeed or deliver the baby. But other than that, anything else, if the Quran said about the mother, you could say, well, a father can do it too, and some fathers do, right? From changing diapers to giving bath and so on. So this is the only thing that, regardless of what time period you're in, or regardless of where you live, it is true that only women can do this. So there's something like it's highlighting something that's unique to a mother and cannot be replaced.
Yeah, that's clearly true. My question was, what is the wisdom in mentioning it? Because it's true, because we cannot say, you could say that fathers make a living, but more and more we see that mothers also make a living. So I understand, I agree with what you said. Why is it mentioned? Like, we know that, but why is it mentioned? As far as we're concerned, because what comes right after is shukr, is gratitude. That's why I thought maybe it's because it is something very valuable. However, it's like, when we talk about things that we're grateful for, the thing that we think about the least is air, water, because we take them for granted. But actually, if we stop and think about how valuable they are actually much more valuable than things we work for. But because they are freely available, we tend to take them for granted. We forget them. When we remember, inshallah, we're grateful for them. Yeah. And so I thought about it in that way as well. Wallahu a'lam.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Yamina. I think usually what happens, like Isra said, mother initially takes care of the kids, of the infant, and it's very hard work. And when the kid itself the child doesn't have any consciousness, but later on what happens, you see, even the Prophet ﷺ said 3 times that mother, you're supposed to attend to your mother, take care of her 3 times more than the father, because it's very, the women are always being weak, are not, as a mother also, they, when the father takes over and they see father going and bringing the money, and so they think that he's the main person who's taking care, and they keep forgetting what their mother did, easily. And since women are, very weak and they are exploited, that's why I think the Prophet ﷺ said 3 times. if he had not mentioned, people would, would go with their own natural inclination, and um, as usual, always the weak are, taken advantage of and all that. I mean, mother is not some third person, but still, I think it's usually overlooked her rights, and they take for granted because mother also spoils the kids.
Thank you for sharing.
And I'm not sure if this is like the key point about the verse, but to me it's a big, it's a balagha, it's a very profound eloquence there, because if you wanted to say one thing about parents that goes across the board, across cultures, across the time periods, if you could identify one thing, that would be pregnancy and breastfeeding. Anything other than that, like, you can't identify it. Like, tell me, how does a parenthood look like? Because anything else can be done somebody who's a guardian and not a parent. So I think there's a balagha there, but I don't quite know, like, how that connects back to tawheed. And definitely I agree. I think gratitude is there, but it's also like amazes me that what kind of it takes is it just won't ever, it's always fresh, and it's a defining thing of being a parent. If this is not there, there is no parenthood.
How about
the
fatherhood then?
Huh?
How about fatherhood?
Like, even fatherhood becomes manifest through this. If there is no pregnancy, there is no fatherhood. Like, whatever role the man plays, if there is no pregnancy, there is no fatherhood. Like, it's defining, and you can't know fatherhood except if a woman gets pregnant. I mean, the father is implied there, because you can't have pregnancy, except in the case of Sayyidina Isa's birth. You can't have pregnancy except without the father. So it is implied there, but the most kind of salient and explicit part is a woman bearing a child in her womb. And I agree with what Esma said and what you said also, that this is something easy to forget and to focus more on the father. And most cultures are, as far as I know, patrilineal and patriarchal, in the sense that they focus a lot on the man. I'm not saying there's no wisdom behind it, but it's almost kind of at the expense of women many times, not always, but many times. So to highlight women, the mother's role, which is so explicit that you can miss it. Like, it's like fish in the water, It's so explicit. If you wanted to say one thing about parenthood, that would be pregnancy, the most salient feature. At the same time, it's the most kind of dismissed or the most forgotten aspect. So the Quran just lifts it up and just puts it right there. And beautifully, it doesn't say be grateful to your mother. It says be grateful to your parents. So through that, of course, it's implied if there is a mother, there's a father also. So it is already implied part of the package, but the most kind of clear and noticeable and worthy of note is that pregnancy part. And then it beautifully includes father as well. So it's nothing, be grateful to your mother most or something. It's always highlighting something that only the woman can do, and then including both mother and the father together. Allahu.
Yeah, thank you. And so the next one was something that we just touched upon very little last time, and frankly, last week I thought no need to discuss it, but for some reason I felt maybe it's better to get it clear. So I did look up many verses in the Quran, and that was about how about abusive parents, because I personally heard again and again that Muslim adults, we're not talking about small children, we're talking about children as adults, they were to obey parents except when they are asked something that went against the teaching of Islam. Only when they were asked for something that was shirk-like, because the ayah says, the ayah in this surah, there is another one I think in Al-Ankabut as well, when it says وَإِنْ جَاهَدَكَ عَلَىٰ أَنْ تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. So if they strive, they make an effort to make you commit shirk with me, then about something you have no knowledge about, do not obey them, both of them. Again, the jewel is used. And usually this is understood as if, so otherwise you have to obey them. And I had like a question mark about what is this obedience? What does it mean? Do we really have to obey our parents? Like, I'm talking about not the children, because with small children, it's another issue. I'm talking about adults. And as we touch about last week, how about abusive parents? I mean, when we talk about parents, it could be anyone, could be someone with personality disorder, could be parents who are not responsible enough, parents who deal in lahw al-hadith, as we saw in the very beginning. So I thought about children that have been abused. They are either abusive themselves, which is not our topic, or feel victimized. They go back to seek guidance. They are in that state of gratitude towards God and finding who they are. And but if you grow up as an abused child, whether physically or emotionally or verbally, it's very easy to fall into a victim mentality and even become easily a target of bullying and abuse as an adult as well. And I was thinking how being grateful to God alone can be healing and liberating for someone like this, because it's going to give you a new identity or a new way to identify who you are, not vis-a-vis your parents, but vis-a-vis your creator, your Rabb, who is your true caretaker. So it's a way of not forgetting, but like not identifying with the abuse anymore. And so it's a way of getting a new identity. I thought it's something to think about, and I don't want to think about it much. What I wanted to talk more about is the obedience thing, because that's what makes it that's at the core of the relationship between parents and adult children and their parents. Especially, as I said, when the parents they can be good, but they can also be evil. They can be balanced. They can be imbalanced people. They can be a very bad role models for their children. They can abuse their children. They can cause them much injustice and pain, both physically, spiritually. And remember, there is an ayah, verse in the Quran, which says, "O you who have believed, be ever steadfast in upholding equity, bearing witness to the truth for the sake of God, even though it be against your own selves or your parents and family and kinsfolk," they've translated it. "Whether the person concerned be rich or poor, God's claim takes precedence over the claims of either of them. Do not then follow your own desires, lest you swear from justice. For if you distort the truth, behold, God is indeed aware of all what you do. So in this ayah, clearly, when we stand for justice, we stand for justice for the sake of God, in the name of God, even if it is against our own selves or our parents. It's interesting that it comes right after, because often we could, and then family comes, because often if we have not truly identified ourselves as the muhsin does, as abd fully, then we still have that illusory identity through family and parents, and so if the parent is unjust or bad or evil or something, it's almost like it's myself. It's like a projection of ourselves, our ego. So this ayah says, استعيذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط, like uphold equity, شهداء لله, bearing witness for God, for the sake of God, ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين, even if it be against your own selves or any of your both parents. Subhanallah. So I came again to this obey, because like obviously in the Quran the verb obey is used positively only when it's referring to God and the Prophet ﷺ. And of course, because the Prophet ﷺ never asks us to obey him as a human being, as anyone, only obey him in following him as the Prophet of God, as the guide to haqq. So really obeying the Prophet boils down to obeying God. And so there are lots of ayats, verses in the Quran about obeying God and the Prophet. It's mostly obeying God, like أطيعوا الله والرسول, or the Prophet saying أطيعون, فاتقوا الله وأطيعون, like be God conscious and obey me. This is repeated in Surah Shu'ara 8 times, subhanallah. فاتقوا الله وأطيعون, again and again. But when it comes to the negative form, do not obey, it's used in reference to disbelievers, the hypocrites, the beliers, المكذبين, فلا تطع المكذبين. يا أيها النبي اتق الله ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين. It's used few times. لا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين. So the fact that when it says do not obey them, it does not mean that there are instances where like where we're supposed to obey them. No, it says do not obey them. So it seems from these ayats like obedience is reserved to God alone and to the Prophet as the Prophet of God, as the guide to haqq. Again, he is guiding us back to God, because God alone is worshipped. And when it comes to parents, each time we're asked to be kind to them. Kindness, goodness, ihsan is what we're asked to. It says, we accepted this solemn pledge from you. You shall worship none but God, and you shall do good unto your parents and kinsfolk, and the orphans and the poor, and you shall speak unto all people in a kindly way, and you shall be constant in prayer, and you shall spend in charity, and yet, save for a few of you, you turned away, for you are obstinate folk. So it's وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ, but what we're interested is لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا. This بالوالدين إحسانا is repeated in the Quran. So worship God only. As for your parents, it's understood as if your parents, you don't worship them, you treat them nicely, be good to them, you do good unto your parents. But it's not only your parents, وَذِي الْقُرْبَى, and your family, and the orphans, and the poor, and speak وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, and speak to people in a kind, in a beautiful way. So subhanallah, here it's like we're supposed to treat not only our parents with kindness, but also all family members, orphans, the poor, and all people. It's almost like the family relationship is supposed to be our indicator, our marker of how to relate to others. Like people out there are not alien. Everyone is someone's parent, someone's child. So everyone, just like you think of your own child, that person out there is also someone's child. He could be your child. Or someone else is someone else's parent. It could be your parents. So because we can relate to people close to us, take those relationships and make it like the criteria for relating to all other people. And again, in another ayah, it says, and worship God alone and do not commit shirk with him in any way. And do good unto your parents and near of kin, like their family, and unto orphans and the needy and the neighbor from among your people, and the neighbor who is the stranger, and the friend by your side, and the wayfarer, and those whom you rightfully possess. Truly God does not love all those who, full of self-conceit, act in a boastful way. Subhanallah. And so commit shirk with him in any way. As for your parents, both, each time we say parents, it's always the jewel, ihsana. When it comes to them, act with ihsan towards them, like kindly, goodly, beautifully. But not only the parents, again here it says, and the people who are near you, qurba, the family, and the orphans, and the poor, and the neighbor who is a stranger, and the neighbor who is of your own people, and neighbor who is a stranger. وَالْجَارِ ذُو الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَانِبِ, and the friend by your side, and it carries on. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and the wayfarer. So this acting kindly is first to your parents, but it's also supposed to be to others as well, except that it says previously, but it's so hard on you. Because it's not easy. But that's what we need to strive for. It does, the emphasis is not obedience, and it doesn't seem that the relationship is a relationship of obedience. In yet another ayah, it says, say, come, let me convey unto you what God has forbidden to you. Do not commit shirk with him in any way, and do good unto your parents. So what is forbidden is shirk. And then what are we supposed to do? Be good unto your parents, and do not kill your children for fear of poverty, for it is we who shall provide sustenance for you as well as for them. And do not commit any shameful deeds. And it carries on. Again, it's أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And we know that Ibrahim alayhi salam, in the beginning, he did pray for his father, and he asked for forgiveness for him. But eventually, at the end, when his father insisted on not changing his ways, then he's actually, the ayah said he disavowed him. He disassociated himself from his father after praying for him. And we know that many of the companions did that as well during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And so the ayah says, and Ibrahim ﷺ's prayer that his father be forgiven was but due to a promise which he had given the latter. But when it was made clear unto him that he had been God's enemy, so for somehow Ibrahim ﷺ realized that his father was actually God's enemy. Then Ibrahim disavowed him. In the Arabic is tabarra'a minhu. Behold, Ibrahim was most tender-hearted, most clement. So it's interesting that it says وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوَدَّةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ فَلَمَّا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّهُ عَدُوٌّ لِلَّهِ تَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُ إِنَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لَأَوَّاهٌ حَلِيمٌ. So although he is so soft-hearted and so clement and so kind, he still disavowed him, which for me is something like, what does it mean? What does it mean? How do we keep that balance? How do we know when is what? Because this is tabarra'a minhu is not like you are, it seems almost like they're not going to have a relationship even. Wallahu a'lam. But what is clear so far from these verses is the adult child with his parents, the relationship between an adult child and the parents doesn't seem to be, to me, from the Quran ayat, one of obedience, but one of ihsan, one of kindness and mutual respect and understanding, one of keeping the balance and the justice and the goodness. And so children are expected to remain kind and respectful to parents, even in difficult situations. I mean, sometimes the relationship or the circumstances of the relationship can be strained. However, it seems like this doesn't mean that the adult child needs to tolerate injustices by the parents, or they cannot protect themselves if the parents' relationship is actually harming them in some ways. Because when you say obey except when shirk, who is going to decide what is shirk? And obey, like you're an adult obeying another adult, it's like the whole, the quality of the relationship to me becomes a little bit like not easy to handle if it is a relationship of obedience. And how, if you're going to obey, where are you going to obey God? Where are you going to obey your parents? And it goes against the spirit of not following forefathers blindly. Especially that these parents are not all Luqman alayhi salam, they're not all wise. So yeah, it's a big burden if it's understood as obedience, but subhanAllah, I couldn't find anything that said obey your parents, except that always be kind to them, be with ihsan, be good, be like
respectful.
Be respectful, like try to bear with them, be patient. I mean, not only with your parents, we know in either 18 or 19, it said, and be patient in adversity. And if you have a difficult parent or an imbalanced parent or something, that's a big, something big to deal with. And so patience is something, a quality of the muhsin.
This is very interesting, Sister Yamina, because like there is nothing in the Quran that There is no construct that says obey your parents. And then, one may think that maybe it's not in the Quran, but in some hadith, there's a lot of emphasis on the parents. And I do recall like hearing obey word in hadith literature. But then, like, I think it's the way people translate it, because like here is a hadith, for instance. In Arabic, it says, "Man asbaha muti'an lillahi fil walidayn." Whoever becomes obedient to God in their parents, right? In their parents, about their parents. But in the translation, it says, one who follows the orders of Allah with regards to obeying parents.
I didn't understand, because obedience is only to God, and my obedience
I'm
to
sending you
God
the text.
requires me to be muhsin, to be kind and good and respectful and patient with my parents. But it does not say what you read. That's a good example. Doesn't say obey the parents.
Yeah, and so
that's a big burden to obey the parents, because some parents are easy to obey, alhamdulillah. But
because respect can be there, like you can respectfully disagree with someone without saying off or without being like hurtful to that, because obeying is taken to a level when you obey, you got to do what they say, and then if you say, I don't think this is the thing to do, and is this sinful, like this is a typical way many people, and if you type on Google saying obeying parents, many websites come with Islam, and if you read closely, where is the obeying word? There is no obeying word in the Quran. It says the Quran calls us to obey God, obey parents, except for shirk. And then the passages given none of them has the word obey. They are, as I don't want to repeat, you have just said it, but it's kind of an interesting thing to face, because for some reason I thought it's not in the Quran, but maybe somewhere in the Hadith, because obey is at the forefront of how Muslims talk about parents. But even in this particular hadith that I was able to find, it's not saying obey parents, it's saying obey God about parents, and which is hard, because sometimes you want to talk back, sometimes you want to just say, oh, you guys are old, or you don't understand. It's easy to be hurtful. So really, it's not easy to obey God's guidance about being kind and respectful. But it's also very striking that it never says obey your parents. So like there are situations where the parent says, I don't want you to study law, I want you to study medicine. Oh, I have to obey my parent because studying medicine is not shirk, and I want to do law, but I'm just making this up. I have
maybe your whole life you're going to be because it's not something that you like. All your life you will be sad. You won't be able to make your worship and be grateful as much as you could, because it's not your potential, it's not your calling. But they insist that you study this or
that. Sister Yamina, I had a question. So what is the word that for obey is in Quran? Itaat, right? Ta, right?
Yes.
So you are saying it's never used in regards to
so it's used. That's why we are looking at them. It's used in this
but never in regards to parents. It never says.
So it's used positively in regards to God and the Prophet, but in regards to parents, it's used in Surat Luqman in ayah, I think 15, when it says, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. Do not obey them when they ask you to do something that relates to shirk. And this is usually understood that when it is not shirk, you have to obey them.
Oh, okay. So in a not a negative way, but by default.
Yeah, but the ayah itself is used only in the negative when it comes to parents. It's used positively when it comes to God. And the hadith that Isra just mentioned is a nice example, because it says, obey God in the parents. And so we look at what does God wants us to do to the parents? Be good to them. Be accompany them with goodness. Be respectful. Don't even say off to them, especially when they are old. Take care of them. So So that hadith is not saying obey your parents. It says obey your God in what concerns the parents. And in what concerns the parents is goodness and patience. And they are not easy things, because when you say obey, it's easy to just dismiss it, like it can't be. And it makes it easy to have a healthy, balanced relationship that's based on kindness and mutual understanding, adult with adult, because they're both adults. And it makes it really strange when we label it as obey.
So I'm a little bit confused. So you are saying this is the only place where in a negative way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to obey. Most of the places it's kindness. How about this word wasaina? I mean that is strong too, right?
So
wasiyat means it's almost like an order.
Yes, wasaina, we have enjoined unto him.
Oh, okay, enjoined.
Yeah.
It's not like an mandatory.
It says wasaina anishkur. So we have to be grateful. What is the wasiya here? Is to be grateful towards your parents. But first, be grateful to God, because if we are truly grateful to God, then we will be grateful for all the blessings that He gave us. And the first blessings is the blessing of being, of coming into existence, of coming into this world, and they all came through the parents. So if you're truly grateful to God, then you start by being grateful to your parents. But it carries on. It's saying not only being grateful, but also if they try to make you commit shirk, then do not obey them. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But even then, even do not obey them, but then accompany them, live with them with kindness. Just don't take that as an excuse that I'm not going to obey them. They are forcing me to shirk. So you don't obey them. There is a limit, but beyond that limit, you still have to be kind to them.
And also, just it says jahadaka. Yeah, it's not just saying if they tell you to do something shirk. It's saying if they are kind of struggling with you, like they're insisting that you do it, and so then you don't obey them. Meaning, you may feel like I gotta go with the flow because they're really frustrated with me not doing that thing.
And the word insan is used here for all mankind. It's not just.
Insan means human being.
Mankind, it's not just believers, I mean, it's in general, it's a generic verse for all mankind.
Yes.
I'm just saying, commenting on the beautiful choice of words. It could have been anything else,
Mm-hmm.
It could be nas. I don't know, but I don't know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose insan.
Because we are also always reminded from the parents' perspective, we're always told your children are not your property. You can't do whatever you do with them. They are we call them an
amana.
They are entrusted to you by their creator. And so they should be treated with fairness, with kindness as well. And so the relationship between the two is not one of, doesn't seem to be one of obedience, but one of kindness, fairness, mutual understanding, and mutual respect. And because the parents give that, they treat their children. They don't always treat, but even when they don't treat parents with their children with fairness or with kindness, the example given in the ayah mentioned earlier was ayah 14, when it says the mother bore him. It doesn't talk about what they did to you later. even if they were not the best of parents, the mother still bore you. So for that, you owe them that gratitude, you owe them that kindness, if you are truly grateful to God, because as a token of gratitude towards God, who gave us parents, who gave human beings, who gave an insan, every human being, a pair of parents to take care of them, when they are the weakest, the most vulnerable, the neediest.
Yeah, the most striking thing which I noticed in Quran was that, you know, it always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells kids, children, to take care of their parents, be kind, like you said, and ihsan and everything. It never, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never tells parents, gives advice to how to, treat the kids and all that, because He's given, there's an inbuilt, what should I say, like we were discussing last time, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put some bonding, love, so deep in the parents, that they always do the best for. So there is no question that they should anybody question that regarding their intention, or so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never mentions about parents, always about the kids. So this is very striking for me. He never admonishes the parents. I mean, generic verses are there to be good to everyone, but never. But to kids, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, because
it's not obvious, especially with elderly parents that needs care. It's not obvious that the child is going to feel that compassion that the parents, mostly, generally speaking, will feel towards a small, tiny, newborn child.
Yeah, they talk about oxytocin, the love hormone, and the pleasure hormone, the dopamine. Those are mechanisms by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala injects love, in mothers, children, and everyone else, I guess. But it's basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is, his name is, the name which means love. What is that? Wudud, al-Wudud.
Yeah, and that's why in the Quran it does, like as you mentioned, one of the first things we learn as kids is وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَهُمَا أُفٍّ You learned it as kid. Your Rabb, your Lord, has ordained that you shall worship no one except Him, and do good unto both of your parents. Should one of them or both of them reach old age in your care, never say oof to them or scold them, but always speak unto them kindly. وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. And pray for them. Say, oh, please God, like, have compassion, have mercy on them, as they brought me up when I was a young child. So, as you said, it's not obvious when you are an adult to take care of an elderly parent. That's why it is here. It is وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ, like it is. He has ordained that this is what you need to do. You worship only Him, and when it comes to the parents, ihsan, again, the kindness. And if they reach old age when they are with you, then take care of them without complaining, without scolding them, and speak to them kindly.
Yeah. The one question, do you think insan is used because we forget from nisyan? I mean, do you think insan is being used here by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because we easily forget, that how, our mother took care of her while we were, while she was pregnant and all that. Usually the weak are always victims. So that's why
in other verses, it does not say anything. It just speaking directly to us, like it's a direct force. You do this. So Allahu Alam, I don't know. But like being kind to one's parents and pleasing them is to be done with the purpose of obeying God, like the hadith says. And so being grateful to God for what he sent us through our parents will necessitate that we are grateful to our parents. If we are not kind to our parents, it means we are not fully aware, or we forgot how blessed we have been through them. So and that's why in another verse again, wasayna is used with insan. I don't know why. So Sister Esma just asked, but there is another verse in another Surah which also starts with وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا, and then again حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال, maybe you know this is a dua that we make all the time. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه واصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. And so the beginning is, again, we have enjoined upon human being, insan, which is the generic for everyone, goodness towards his parents, ihsan towards his parents. In his mother bore him in pain, and she gave him birth in pain, and her bearing him and his utter dependence on her took 30 months. And so when he attains to full maturity and reaches 40 years, he prays. When he reaches 40 years, then he starts, he realizes the reality, because now he has children who also says off to him. He can empathize more with his parents. Oh my Rabb, oh my sustainer, inspire me so that I may forever be grateful for those blessings of yours with which you have graced me and my parents, and that I may do what is right, that will meet with your good acceptance, and grant me righteousness in my offspring. Truly unto you I have turned in repentance, inni tubtu ilayka, for truly I am of those who have surrendered themselves unto you. Inni tubtu ilayka wa inni min al-muslimin.
This one is 46:15.
Yes. And so at the end of the day, as we mentioned last week, it's always about the balance between responsibility towards parents and worshiping God alone without falling into shirk, either by following parents blindly or neglecting them, like that balance between the two. And this requires that compassion, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, hilm and compassion, and wisdom. And the wisdom, this is what we are talking about here. This surah is about how to be so that we are given wisdom. And in the beginning, it's talking about the muhsinin. So it is given to the muhsin, but how are we going to be muhsins? So the hikmah here is to keep a balance of loving and respecting. Sometimes it may be even hard to love a parent who is abusive, but still, how are we going to deal with them with kindness, with ihsan, with respect, with justice, with fairness, without neglecting them totally, and loving God and worshipping Him only without falling into, following forefathers at the expense of following God. And we said it was like the solution was to learn to love everything, to respect everything, to deal with everything, to appreciate and be grateful to everyone in His name, because whatever came and is coming to us through them is coming through God. Even the things that we don't like are coming bi'iznihi for a reason. like whatever happened to Yusuf alayhi salam through his own brother, as far as they're concerned, they didn't. Their choice was bad, and it was injustice. But as far as he's concerned, because he saw it, because he was a muhsin, and so he was aware that whatever happened by God's leave, God's permission, that also matured him and made him able to receive the wisdom with which to understand the meaning of all the events that happened in his life. And so he could see the face of everything that looks to God, the face of everything, wajh Allah, that looks to the beautiful names. And so he could see, he could learn from everything, even the bad. And he grew as a abd, as a human being, as someone who is being sent to this world to know God, not just to live randomly. And so, as we have said, to receive that hikmah, we need to be in a state of ihsan. We need to be a muhsin. And that's exactly what Luqman alayhi salam is teaching his son. And he starts with being grateful to God and to others in his name. And in order to maintain that state of gratitude, so ihsan is to be grateful all the time. And that's not easy, because especially when something we don't like is happening. And when you look at close relationships, like parent-child relationships, it's we try it all the time. You can't keep, I'm grateful with my children, grateful for my parents, if you mean only good things are happening, because we're not in paradise. Things will go up and down. Now, the muhsin is the one who is grateful all the time. Why? Because he is aware that everything is coming from him. So he does not commit shirk, because shirk will be, a shirki attitude will be, the bad is coming from things themselves. For instance, if I think that it's coming from themselves, it means the good also, I think it's coming from things themselves. It's like Ibn Ata'Allah al-Iskandari, when he says, if when you fail at something, you despair, it means when you were, I don't remember the exact words, it's been a while since I've been reading it, but I think it's maybe the first hikmah. It means when you were successful, you attributed it to yourself, even when we say Alhamdulillah. Because if it was truly Alhamdulillah from God, then when we don't anyways, it just means that this time God gave me something else. And so that's why he says, do not commit shirk first. And then be good to your parents without committing shirk. And then establish the prayer and do what's right and forbid what's wrong, and be patient in adversity. That was ayah 17. And turn not your cheek away from people in false pride, and do not walk haughtily on earth, because God does not love those who are self-conceited and act in a boastful way. And then, so do not, it's warning us against pride and boasting and arrogance, because they negate gratitude. And then in ayah 19, we were told, and be modest in your bearing and lower your voice, for behold, so lower your voice, because that's modesty. So he's saying be modest in the way you carry yourself, and walk with modesty, lower your voice. Subhanallah. So even how to carry ourselves, how to talk, is taught to us, so that we nurture that state of gratitude in everything. And then in the next ayah, in ayah 20, we told, and Are you not aware that God has given to your service all that is in the heavens and all that is on earth? And he has lavished upon you his blessings, both outward and inward. And yet among people there is many a one that argues about God without having any knowledge of him, without any guidance, and without any light-giving book. ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير. So, subhanallah, again, all this was told to us, remember, to get the wisdom. And the wisdom was to be grateful. So we need to be grateful. Being a muh, you want to live in ihsan? Be grateful. Be grateful in everything, not only in adversity as well. And so it says, are you not aware that God has سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض? All that is in the heavens and all that is on earth has been given to your service. Subhanallah. It's very humbling. When you hear this, if you truly start thinking about it, it's very humbling. It's just like ayah 18 and 19. And it says like all these blessings, outward and ظاهرة وباطنة. And we can think of a very small example. For instance, we have eyes and ears and a tongue. The eyes, you see eyes, but when you stop and think about it, the inner blessing that corresponds to the eye is sight. Subhanallah, what is sight? We see things. What does it mean? We see so many things. We see forms. We see colors. Subhanallah. It's amazing how many things we see and we can see, and the how big a blessing it is. And hearing. We hear words, we hear meanings, we hear sounds. And tongue, it looks like a tongue, but it's actually tastes so many different tastes, sour, sweet, everything. And speech. Without tongue, you can't speak. Subhanallah. So, and this is just a small, very small example. And the inner blessings are really, really mind-boggling. It's really, they are so vast because you think it's an eye. It looks like an eye, it's very limited. But what we see is, if you were on a top of a mountain, you can see as far as the horizon. So the inner blessings, they are so vast because they look to the more, how do you say, the less physical, the more, how do you say when something is not physical, spiritual? It becomes more and more, sorry?
Spiritual?
No, like not spiritual, but like something like you have bread, and then you have water, then you have air. It's becoming less and less physical, more and more
ephemeral. What's the word?
No. More abstract, let's say. The more abstract, the more actually precious it is, and the more comprehensive it becomes, and the more it looks to, more likely to look to the unseen, because it's only with and the eye becomes, we understand the blessing of the eye because of the sight, because an eye that doesn't see is not an eye. And if we think of all the universe, all the order in the universe, for instance, in order to see, there needs to be light, there needs to be all the rules of optics going on, the lenses that we have in the eye, and so many other things that are going on for us to be able to see. All the nerves in going to the brain and things like that. So actually, the visible part is only a tiny part of the invisible to the eye, of an inner order that pervades everything. And all these blessings, they are all given to us and put our service. And this is truly very humbling, and it makes us like want to prostrate in gratitude and in awe because of the Adama, the ground, how great our Rabb is and how generous. And yet it says some people argue about God, and not because they know something, without having any knowledge, without any guidance, and without any kitabin munir, light-giving book. So the muhsins described at the beginning in ayat 3 and 4, they have that yaqeen, and so no argument is going to really distract them from their path or deter them from their path of gratitude, from being fully grateful and surrendering fully. Even in times when it looks like darkness, when it looks like things are not going well. And they can only be when you have that state of yaqeen, because remember the muhsins are those who have yaqeen of akhirah, so they know that whatever is going on in this world is going on for a purpose, and that it always have like a small aspect of it look to this transient life, but most of it looks to the next life, and that is beautiful. That aspect is beautiful. And so when you see people who argue without knowledge, without guidance, without light-giving book, just like that, just because they don't want to surrender, because they don't want to be grateful, it's just like a choice. That's it. Like all these evidences that we have, all these blessings in the world and everything that we are given in the Quran, they are only evidences for those who are willing to surrender, willing to be grateful. Because if someone is not willing, no one can help him until that person's change their heart. And so you can only be sad. It makes, I don't know what else you can feel. Only it makes them sad, but it doesn't make you doubt, because if you don't have that certainty, what comes to my mind, like in the name of science or something, when they don't truly know. I mean, when you study science yourself, you know that no one truly knows. And I know people who are not scientists they say it's like they found something to hold on. And if you are not sure yourself, you can start doubting yourself. But if you have yaqeen, there's no way to doubt. They can say whatever they want. I know the truth. There is one God, He creates everything. Everything is coming from Him, and everything has a purpose. Everything is for the good of humanity. And so you just get sad that people could be blind to these endless blessings, visible and invisible, that we've all being showered with. They are also being showered with. So you can only pray that may Allah open their heart and they see the blessings as blessings, inshallah. And in the next ayah it says, and when such people are told to follow that which God has bestowed upon from on high, they answer, no, we shall follow that which we found our forefathers believing in and doing. Why? Would you follow your forefathers even if Satan had invited them onto the suffering of the blazing flame? And here about now, our forefathers does not have to be my direct parents, someone's direct parents. It could be like, this is the way we do it. This is the way everyone believes. This is the way I've heard. But it's not because when we say this, it's not because we don't know how to question, because we question everything when we want. It's just because we like it. It's just because it's our excuse to hold on something. And so this ayah is warning us against following forefathers or following what we find the majority or people saying blindly. I don't understand it as forefathers only in the hereditary sense. And why? Because they can be misguided. So again, if we think about the obedience, if we take forefathers literally, then this ayah is telling us not to follow blindly. It means we can't just obey parents because they're not all wise like Luqman alayhi salam. So clearly, this ayah invites us to pause and reflect on how we live our lives. Who do we follow? Because when we're consciously following divine guidance, it's fine. But when we're not consciously following divine guidance, then we are living unconsciously. And when we're living unconsciously, we just living through habits, and our habits, where did we get them? Most of them, like our values, we got them from wherever we grew up in. And they could be good things, which we can keep because they, they do not contradict divine guidance. Maybe they make it even easier, like helping the needy, being charitable, being truthful, things like this. Very good, alhamdulillah. But there are many other values that, for instance, giving importance to people according to their status, their family status, their names, their money, their things like this are very often we find values like this. And here, remember, it was all about being kind to the parents, the family, the orphans, the poor. So if we're not consciously following the divine guidance in cases like that, for instance, then we have to revise them, because when we are unconsciously living our life, we're just following our parents, our society, whatever it is, without questioning, without weighing the false from the truth. And this is true also in how we see the world, what we learn as children. We call it scientific, but often the so-called scientific there is no God there. It's just as if things are happening on their own. They're not being created. They're not being sustained, and many other things. And the next ayah says, now whoever surrenders his whole being unto God while being muhsin has indeed taken hold of a support most unfailing, for with God rests the final outcome of all events, of all things. وَمَنْ يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى وَإِلَى اللَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. So rather than blindly following forefathers, deliverance here, we are told, is in surrendering wholeheartedly, fully, in a state of ihsan. And what is this surrendering wholeheartedly in a state of ihsan? It just, the previous ayat told us what it was, following the guidance of all the ayats before, being grateful, no shirk, being good to your parents without committing shirk, establishing the prayer, doing what's right, forbidding what's wrong, being patient in adversity, avoiding being proud and boastful and arrogant, and even the way we walk, the way we talk should be modest and not arrogant. All this is that surrendering wholeheartedly in a state of ihsan. And if we do that, then it says you would have, whoever does that has indeed taken hold of a support most unfailing. So now you are holding something that supports you, subhanallah. And I don't know how you, like, if you think about life, everything, when we remember, when we live with that awareness that everything is flowing, everything is transient, everything is impermanent, we do really need something to hold on. We need something that won't just live with us, something that we can rely on. And if you want to have that feeling of safety and security and aman, then it says, surrender wholeheartedly with your whole being. Because if I don't surrender wholeheartedly, it means I'm still relying on myself. And if I'm still relying on myself, it means I'm still have some illusions about me doing things and like about who I am. It means I'm not fully aware of what abd is. I'm not living in that state of full surrender, prostration, in awe. And so I can't be in a state of ihsan. I can't be in a state of ihsan because I cannot see the connection with God in everything. Because if I am not totally surrendered, I will project that on everything and I cannot see them fully from God and only from Him. It goes back to shirk. And so I cannot be fully grateful to Him because I will still be grateful a little bit to myself. Yes, but I did also, like it was also me. If I haven't done that, I wouldn't have done that, which is a totally false way of thinking. It's illogical, but we do hold on to that false logic to give ourselves some, how would you say? Some part in whatever is achieved. We see it as an achievement, not as a gift, whereas everything is a gift. My thinking, my thoughts, anything that has value is a gift, is given to me. And anything that is not is me blocking the gift that was coming. So it's time for istighfar. If I don't like what's coming, it's time for istighfar. Either because I'm blocking goodness or because what I don't like, it may be that not liking it is also, I am made to not like it, and there is something good in that. But the istighfar is because when I forget that everything, that connection, and when I imagine that I am the one who doesn't like what's going on, as if I am the source of the dislike, I am the one who decides, I make istighfar for that, because that disconnection, when I am disconnected, I am not in a state of ihsan. I'm not, and I cannot fully surrender. And the next ayah is also beautiful. It says, but as for him who deny the truth, let not his denial grieve you. I found this very interesting because in the previous ayah, in ayah, what was it, 20, when it says يجادل, yes, 20. When it says وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدًى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ, I felt like if you have true yaqeen, what would you feel for someone like this? You would feel sad, you would grieve for them. Because I'm thinking like these people, it's easy to see these people as far. It could be us, but if we are in a state of we can grieve for them, it means in that moment we are not them. But it could be someone very close to you. So it says, but as for him who deny the truth, let not his denial grieve you. Unto us they must return, and then we shall make them understand all they were doing, for truly God has full knowledge of what is in the hearts. I mean, it is very sad to see people go astray and deprive themselves of precious divine guidance, especially when you appreciate it yourself, when you surrender yourself, when you experience the ease in that surrender and the beauty of that surrender, and you taste it and you're so grateful about it, for it, and you see people around you who insist on not surrendering, on resisting and depriving themselves of that safety, that peace of heart, that satisfaction that you find only in connecting with God. Here, we're told not to grieve over those who deny because it's their choice, I guess. Which I understand, do not grieve, فَلَا يَحْزُنُكَ كُفْرُهُ. Like, move forward. Don't be busy yourself with someone who is stubborn. And so I made me think, how about if these people are your own family, your own parents, your own children, your own siblings? It's not easy to move. But sometimes, think about it, sometimes it's precisely because we are very concerned about those beloved ones that they feel they don't have a choice, so they feel like we are compelling them. They feel compelled. And so it's almost like we are not giving them, even when we're not speaking about it, they can feel it. It's almost like we're not giving them that space where they can decide for themselves. And if you stop and think about it, let's say for years we have been like, oh my God, I hope they understand. We're not saying anything to them, but in our heart, this is how we feel. Look, what happened? Just because I'm worrying, I'm not truly praying, I'm worrying about them, it doesn't make them change. And those prayers seems to me like they're not fully sincere, in the sense that we're always waiting for the results. We're not surrendering fully to God, and like the result is from you. You know what is best. I do my prayer. I pray, of course, and maybe through praying for my close ones, I pray for everyone else who is in the same situation. But the result is from God at the time, He decides about the timing and everything. But personally, when I find myself waiting for the result, it's as if my prayer itself like should produce the result. As if I prayed, where is the result? Or as though God doesn't know my heart, as if I am separate and independent of God. I am telling you, and I'm waiting for you to do something. Astaghfirullah. This is not how it is. That feeling in me, that want, that desire for those people to surrender and to God and come back to who they are, is given to me. So instead of worrying, that desire should be, I should take it as a sign that God knows and He's taking care of them just as He's taking care of me. And just as He brought me back to Him, He will, inshallah, bring them back to Him when they want. And I can't make anyone want by force. I pray. And my prayer is an acknowledgement that God is so merciful. God is the guide. He made me. He gave me this need for everyone to be guided back to Him. So He must be the guide. He must be the compassionate. He must be the generous one. It can't be me. But I said not sincere because I forget it feels like I am the one. I, separate I, independent I am praying. Where is the result? Where is the result? What's going to happen to them? But when I see it as that is a need that is created in me and the desire is given to me to pray and know that He is the giver of guidance. He's the one who guides. He's the one who is guiding me right now. Then it becomes easy to surrender into that situation as well. And instead of grieving, we will surrender to God in prayer for all, and asking for forgiveness for all, inshallah. Because it's so easy to forget, so easy to believe in that illusion that I am separate, that I can empathize, I can understand how they can imagine that they exist on their own. Because although I surrender, although I know, although I experience it many times, very quickly I forget and find myself again into that realm, into that state of being where, as if I am the one who decides, who prays, who does things on her own, as if I exist independently of my Rabb. Astaghfirullah. So my prayer becomes a prayer in surrender, in ihsan, inshallah, and making istighfar for myself and for everyone, for that state of forgetting or that state of resisting. May we all surrender in ihsan, inshallah. اللهم اجعلنا من المسلمين إلى الله ونحن محسنين. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه واصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا واجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك وأرنا مناسكنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Whenever I read this last ayah, I remember Aliyah. Subhanallah. Thank you.
Could you share with us the translation of the last ayah? Sister Yamina?
Maybe Aliyah. She's the one who likes the ayah very much.
Ali is unable to join us tonight. She's on the way to a conference. So she's saying salam. She had said salam. So.
ربنا وجعلنا مسلمين لك. Oh, our Rabb, our sustainer, make us surrender ourselves unto you and and make us and our offspring, our children, surrender ourselves unto you. And make us surrender ourselves unto you, and make our children community that surrenders itself unto you and shows our ways of worship. I don't know how to translate manasik. وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا, and accept our repentance, for truly you alone are the one who accepts repentance. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ, the forgiver, the merciful.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Ameen. And Sister Jalila reminded us the blessed days of Muharram, and she was saying salam to those who are fasting as well. And so with that, inshallah, we'll close tonight's session. We're going to stop at verse 23 in Surah Luqman, and we'll continue from here, inshallah, the next week. May you have a blessed week with surrender, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, and Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Thank you.